Recently, I have been reading C.S. Lewis's essays, A Humanitarian Theory of Punishment and Is Progress Possible? Both are concerned with what has been elsewhere called the therapeutic state. Lewis begins by looking at the administration of justice. In a classical conception of law, the criminal is punished for their crime because it is morally wrong. Retributive justice treats the offender as a rational human capable of doing what is good or evil, recognized by the punishment of their evil actions. However, Lewis noted in his own day that there was an increasing turn to what we would call restorative justice. On this view, crime is not so much the result of moral agency as pathology. Bad behavior is the result either of an inherent neurosis or psychological disorder caused by one's environment. Either way, the justice system attempts to cure the criminal of his or her defects. No longer are the criminal's actions morally wrong. They are symptoms of an illness that need treatment. At the same time, the criminal's sentencing is used to deter others from acting in similarly unhealthy ways. Thus, the concept of desert has been substituted for that of cure and deterrent in the justice system. This turn towards psychologizing and the therapeutic redress represented a carte blanche acceptance of Freudian psychoanalysis and Marxian narratives of class struggle, a materialist account of criminality. The curative emphasis is not confined to restorative justice. It inflects all aspects of modern life. The ruling regime does not exist to protect the rights of its citizens to life, liberty and prosperity, but rather to maintain our health and cure our defects. Increasingly, experts are required to design and manage populations through technology in order to preserve the well-being of the individual and, more importantly, the collective by eradicating psychological and physiological diseases. An omnicompetent global technocracy is needed to provide universal healthcare, healing all hunger and sickness. The world welfare state is born and, for Lewis, humanity is in chains. Scholars such as Michel Foucault, Christopher Lasch, and James Nolan have confirmed Lewis's predictions. We in the West live in therapeutic societies. Governments, institutions, and corporations take an increasing role in managing the health and emotional well-being of their citizens and clients. There is an increasing tendency to psychologize the arguments of interlocutors in philosophical and political discussion. Those who break hate speech laws are prosecuted because their words cause offense to an individual based on one of their primary characteristics, thereby disturbing their mental and emotional health. Their offence is pathological in nature, a symptom of homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, whiteness, toxic masculinity, all of which are threats to public health which need to be cured by extensive re-education. Emotional and mental well-being become the basis for plastic surgery and gender reassignment. Schools and universities are encouraged to focus on the self-esteem of students. Mindfulness and self-help literature booms. States and intergovernmental organizations increasingly justify their decisions on the basis of public health, whether it be lockdowns, mandatory vaccinations, the creation of healthy towns, and measures needed to manage populations and climate change. Some people have described the United Kingdom as a healthcare system with a state attached, and nowhere is this clearer than the government's justification for successive lockdowns in order to prevent the health service from being overwhelmed, to address the existential threat to universal care for everyone. Managerial regimes see human life as an organic problem that needs to be fixed, resolvable through mathematical models and technological innovation. All measures are justified to ensure that the human race can survive and is healthy. Lewis was worried that the therapeutic state makes its citizens less than human. Take the criminal given restorative justice. Deemed to have a pathological disorder, he or she can be taken, against their will, for extensive and indefinite treatment. The expert will use all manner of therapy and drugs to remake the criminal in accordance with some standard of normality. Only when compliance is realized can a criminal, now cured, be let go. Such a remedy robs an individual of agency, consists in a torture no offender would ever be sentenced to in a justice system grounded in desert, and engages with the criminal like a bug or machine which needs to be fixed. Moreover, who decides who has a pathology? The therapeutic state poses a danger insofar as it can decide that those who are a problem for the ruling regime are suffering from an illness which requires curing. The USSR attempted to annihilate religious belief and declared Christianity to be a dangerous neurosis. Thus, many Orthodox Christians were sent to mental hospitals by the regime. There they experienced psychological punishments and mind control experiments, which sought to recondition them from their so-called psychopathological mechanisms in order to make them compliant with the communist regime. Political enemies can quickly become pathologized and, thus, the subjects of restorative justice and punishment. Nevertheless, the therapeutic state's most important feature is that it encourages the absolute dependency of humanity on a paternalist technocracy. As voluntary forms of association disintegrate, such as the church or community groups, isolated individuals look to conglomerations of governments, NGOs, and corporations to supply their needs. Food, shelter, energy, income, the things we need to survive, are given by multinational corporations and state agencies in exchange for increasing control over our lives. We've seen it before. The Puritans justified interfering and managing people's lives for the sake of the health of their souls. Now, these organizations do it for our emotional and physical health. In turn, by handing over absolute mastery of our lives to this new elite, humanity becomes cattle to be shunted and moved according to the designs of the experts. A population moved here, a few deaths there, a denigration of life quality where necessary, with no recourse for resistance or accountability possible, all for the greater good of our health and well-being. Nolan has made the important point that the expansion of the therapeutic state is not a purely top-down phenomenon. People want it. Students campaign for more therapists on campus. Groups on the left and right embrace victim ideology and seek redress. Societal ills and individual problems are always considered in relation to the government performing some action on our behalf for our betterment. Lewis, in his own way, makes the same point. People need food, and given population size, only technological paternity can supply us with what we need to survive. A hungry beggar doesn't care about freedom when a meal is on offer. Lewis, however, was concerned with the nature of this reasoning. Such a deal assumes that mere survival is the basis for organizing society. However, all must at some point die, and longevity is not a good in itself. What matters is not how long we will live or how long humanity as a species survives. What matters is the quality of life. Are we becoming better people? Are we becoming happier? Is it better to live a short but virtuous life filled with freedom and vitality and creativity than a long life in bondage to a therapeutic state which feeds and cares for us? Unless we wrestle with these questions, the West will continue on this path of the therapeutic state in obliviousness.